They tried to bury you, but they didn't know you were a seed. If you're watching this at 2 a.m., crying, wondering if God has forgotten your name, this is no coincidence. This moment right here, right now, was orchestrated before the foundation of the world. For 70 years, maybe 80. You've felt it, haven't you? That gnawing sense that you don't belong to this world. That while others seem to glide through life, you've been walking through fire. Betrayed by those you trusted. Rejected by those you loved. Overlooked by a world that couldn't recognize the treasure standing right in front of them. But what if I told you? What if I told you that every door they slammed in your face was God redirecting you towards something so magnificent, so earth-shattering, that even the angels have been holding their breath, waiting for this moment? What if everything they told you about power was a lie? What if your decades of silence weren't punishment, but preparation? What if your pain wasn't random, but strategic? Something is stirring in the heavenlies tonight. The enemy thought he had you contained, thought your season was over, thought your voice was silenced forever. But there's a sound coming from the throne room of God. And it's your name being called. This is not about a comeback, beloved. Comebacks are for those who left. You never left. You were just hidden. Like Moses in the wilderness. Like David in the cave. Like Jesus in the tomb. Before we go any deeper into this prophetic word, I want to thank every single one of you who has supported this message through Super Thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating. You're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here, your support, your time, your attention. It all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and plant that seed of faith. God sees every act of obedience. But tonight something shifts. The world is about to see who you really are. Not the broken version they tried to create. Not the forgotten soul they tried to discard. But the weapon of warfare you were forged to be. Because what happened next, what's about to happen to you, made the darkness tremble. And every enemy that tried to silence you is about to learn why God keeps his most dangerous servants hidden until the final hour. Are you ready to remember who you are? You weren't buried, you were planted. And tonight, beloved, the soil is cracking. What they mistook for your ending was actually your beginning. You see, you've been mistaken your whole life for average. Labeled as ordinary by people who couldn't recognize extraordinary when it was standing right in front of them, breathing, waiting, preparing. But here's what they never understood. You were mislabeled by broken people because your truth terrified them. Your very existence threatened their carefully constructed world of mediocrity. So they called you different. They called you difficult. They called you too much, too deep, too intense. What they were really saying was this: you make us uncomfortable because you remind us of everything we're too afraid to become. Fear was their weapon of choice. They hurled it at you like stones, expecting you to crumble, to conform, to shrink back into the shadows where they could pretend you didn't exist. But something miraculous happened instead. Every stone of fear they threw became a building block in your foundation. Every attempt to diminish you only made you more solid, more unshakable, more dangerous to their kingdom of lies. You didn't break. You bent like a tree in the storm, your roots growing deeper with every wind that tried to uproot you. For decades, you've carried this weight. This sense that somehow, some way, you drew the short straw in life. While others seemed blessed with ease, you got the hard path. While others got the smooth roads, you got the mountains to climb. While others got applause, you got silence. And in that silence, you began to believe the lie that you were somehow cursed, forgotten, or punished by the very God who formed you. But listen to me now with the ears of your spirit. What you interpreted as a curse was actually consecration. You weren't being punished. You were being prepared. Every tear you cried in secret was seen by heaven. Every night you lay awake wondering if anyone cared, the angels were taking notes. Every moment you felt invisible, God was writing your name in golden letters across the scroll of destiny. You've been mistaken your whole life for average. But average people don't go through what you've endured. Average people don't survive what you've survived. Average people don't carry the weight you've carried and still wake up each morning with hope flickering in their chest like an eternal flame that refuses to be extinguished. The very trials that made you question your worth were the exact experiences heaven knew you would need to become who you're about to become. You were consecrated, set apart, made holy through fire, refined until only the pure gold of your spirit remained. Your whole life, people have tried to keep you in a box. Family members who demanded you stay quiet, friends who got uncomfortable when you started growing, systems that rewarded conformity and punished authenticity. They all had one thing in common. They needed you small because somewhere in their spirit, they knew you were meant to be massive. You were mislabeled by broken people because your truth terrified them. Your truth was too big for their small world. Your vision was too clear for their clouded perspective. Your faith was too strong for their doubt-filled environment. So they did what threatened people always do. They tried to cut you down to their size. But here's the secret they never knew. Every time they tried to make you smaller, heaven was making room for you to expand. Every door they closed, God was opening a window. Every time they said no, the universe was preparing to say yes in letters so large that even the blind would see them. You've been mistaken your whole life for average, but massive people are never understood by small minds. Revolutionary people are never embraced by comfortable people. Chosen people are never celebrated by ordinary people until the moment comes when ordinary people need what only the chosen can provide. They celebrated your silence, thinking they had finally tamed you. They breathed easier when you stopped speaking up, stopped challenging their narratives, stopped disrupting their peace with your inconvenient truths. They thought your silence meant defeat. They thought it meant you had finally learned your place, finally accepted their version of who you were supposed to be. But your silence wasn't surrender. Your silence was strategy. While they were making noise, you were gathering strength. While they were talking, you were learning. While they were performing, you were transforming. Your silence became the cocoon where your true self was being formed, not the weak, apologetic version they demanded, but the powerful, uncompromising force you were always meant to be. You were mislabeled by broken people because your truth terrified them. And now, after years of their labels, their limitations, their lies, something is shifting. The silence is breaking, not with screaming or shouting, but with the quiet thunder of absolute truth. The kind of truth that doesn't need to raise its voice because it carries the authority of heaven itself. Your silence was never weakness. It was a loaded weapon, and now heaven is handing you the trigger. When they came at you with hatred, you could have met them with hatred. When they brought drama, you could have brought more drama. When they chose violence, emotional, spiritual, sometimes even physical, you could have chosen violence back. The world expected you to fight fire with fire, to meet them on their level, to play by their rules. But something in your spirit knew better. Something divine whispered to you, in the midst of the battle, don't fight them. Rise above them. So while they were busy throwing punches in the dark, you were ascending to heights they couldn't even see. While they were trapped in the battlefield, you were transcending it entirely. You've been mistaken your whole life for average, but average people fight on the level of their enemies. Extraordinary people, chosen people, they don't fight fire with fire. They become the rain that extinguishes every flame without breaking a sweat. This is why they could never truly defeat you. This is why every attack they launched seemed to bounce off you and return to them doubled. This is why their weapons became ineffective and their strategies backfired. You weren't playing by the rules of earthly warfare. You were operating under heavenly protocols they couldn't crack. You were never the problem. You were the mirror. And mirrors don't lie, they just reflect what's really there. When toxic people looked at you, they saw their own toxicity reflected back. When broken people encountered you, they saw their own brokenness exposed. When false people met you, they saw their own deception unveiled. That's why they couldn't stand to be around you for long. Not because you were difficult, but because you made their lies difficult to maintain. Not because you were judgmental, but because your very presence judged their choices without you saying a word. Not because you were trying to expose them, but because truth has a way of exposing lies just by existing in the same space. You were mislabeled by broken people because your truth terrified them. Your integrity threatened their compromise. Your authenticity challenged their performance. Your peace disturbed their chaos. They called you names, spread lies about you, tried to convince others that you were the problem all because they couldn't handle what the mirror of your life reflected about theirs. But here's what they never understood. You weren't holding up that mirror to hurt them. You were holding it up to heal them. The revelation was supposed to lead to transformation. The exposure was supposed to lead to growth. But they chose to shoot the messenger instead of receiving the message. For too long, you've allowed other people's inability to see you clearly to become your own vision of yourself. You've shrunk to fit their small expectations. You've dimmed your light to accommodate their darkness. You've whispered when you were meant to roar, hidden when you were meant to shine, apologized when you were meant to stand firm. But tonight, right now, in this moment, something is shifting in the heavenly realms. The season of being misunderstood is ending. The chapter of being mislabeled is closing. The years of being mistaken for average are coming to a conclusion so dramatic that even your enemies will have to admit they got it wrong. You were mislabeled by broken people because your truth terrified them, but their terror was never about you, it was about what you represented. Change, growth, evolution. The possibility that people don't have to stay stuck in cycles of mediocrity and dysfunction. The hope that ordinary people can become extraordinary. That broken people can become whole. That lost people can find their way home. You weren't buried, you were planted. And the harvest season has arrived. They thought they knew you. They filed you away in their mental categories, labeled you with their limited understanding, and moved on with their lives thinking the case was closed. But cases involving the chosen are never really closed. They're just sealed until the appointed time. That time is now. The real youth, the one heaven has been preparing in secret, the one that's been forged in the fires of adversity, the one that's been refined in the crucible of rejection is about to step into the light. And when you do, the world will realize they never knew you at all. You've been mistaken your whole life for average. But there's nothing average about what's coming through you. There's nothing ordinary about the assignment on your life. There's nothing common about the calling that's about to be revealed. You were mislabeled by broken people because your truth terrified them. But perfect love casts out fear, and the love of God for you is about to cast out every lie they ever spoke over your life. The comeback isn't coming. The comeback is here, and the world will never be the same. They thought fear would break you. It backfired. You see, beloved, they studied you for years, watched how you moved, how you breathed, how you carried yourself through storms that would have leveled mountains. They calculated every angle, measured every weakness, mapped out your breaking point with scientific precision. But there was one variable they never accounted for. You weren't built by this world. While they were busy crafting weapons designed to shatter human spirits, you were operating on a frequency they couldn't even detect. Your DNA carries codes from another realm. Your heartbeat syncs to rhythms that predate their understanding. And when they finally unleashed everything they had against you, you didn't just survive. You absorbed it, metabolized it, turned their poison into your power. That's why your pain felt different, didn't it? Deeper, more surgical, more intentional. They weren't just trying to hurt you, they were trying to study you, to figure out what makes someone like you tick. Because in 70 years of human observation, they'd never encountered anything quite like your spiritual architecture. You didn't fight fire with fire. You walked into the flame and turned it into light. Your silence wasn't weakness, it was strategy. They mistook your quiet for defeat, thought your stillness meant submission. But what they couldn't see was the cosmic chess game being played 3 dimensions above their heads. While they celebrated what they thought was your surrender, you were actually downloading. Every betrayal downloaded, every rejection processed. Every night you lay awake wondering if God had forgotten your address that was your spirit integrating battle plans they would never comprehend. You see, there's a difference between being broken and being broken open. They thought they were destroying you, but they were actually excavating you, removing everything that wasn't essential, stripping away every piece of armor that belonged to this world so you could receive the kind of protection that comes from another dimension entirely. Your silence became their greatest fear, Because while they were screaming their accusations, plotting their next attack, celebrating their temporary victories, you were in communion with forces that make their darkness look like a flickering candle in a hurricane. That's why you never fit in. You weren't made to conform. You were made to collapse the system. They sent an army. You responded with presence. Remember that moment? When they gathered their forces, the gossips, the manipulators, the false friends turned prosecutors thinking sheer numbers would finally do what individual attacks couldn't accomplish. They came at you like a coordinated strike force, each one playing their assigned role in what they believed would be your final humiliation. But something happened that night that still haunts their dreams. You didn't organize a defense, didn't rally your own troops, didn't even raise your voice. You simply showed up, walked into that room, that situation, that confrontation, carrying something they had never encountered before. Not anger, not bitterness, not even righteous indignation. You carried the kind of peace that makes demons confess. And one by one, their carefully orchestrated attack began to crumble. Not because you fought back, but because your presence revealed the emptiness of their accusations. Your calm exposed the chaos in their hearts. Your stillness made their frantic energy look exactly like what it was, desperation dressed up as power. They came to destroy you and left questioning everything they thought they knew about strength. That's when they realized you weren't the victim in this story. You were the test, and they had just failed spectacularly. You became the mirror they couldn't shatter. For decades, they had perfected the art of projection, built entire identities around pointing fingers, deflecting responsibility, making others carry the weight of their unhealed wounds. It was a system that had worked flawlessly for years until they met you. You see, when someone carries the kind of inner clarity you've developed through fire, they become a living mirror. Not the kind that shows people what they want to see, but the kind that reflects exactly what is. And for those living in illusion, that kind of truth feels like an attack. They threw everything at you: accusations that should have stuck, shame that should have crushed you, guilt that should have buried you alive. But instead of absorbing their poison, you reflected it back to them with surgical precision, not through words, not through retaliation. Simply by being so anchored in truth that lies couldn't survive in your atmosphere. Your very existence became their judgment, and the harder they tried to break you, the clearer their own fractures became. The louder they screamed about your flaws, the more obvious their own brokenness grew, until finally, even they couldn't ignore what was happening. They weren't fighting you, they were fighting their own reflection, and losing, badly. Darkness trembled because you refused to become it. Here's what they never understood about chosen ones like you. You had every reason to turn cold, every justification to become bitter, every excuse to let the darkness they planted in your heart take root and grow into the very thing that tried to destroy you. The recipe was perfect. Take one innocent soul, add years of betrayal, sprinkle in some abandonment. Let simmer in isolation until rage rises to the surface. Serve cold, with a side of revenge. But you broke their formula. Instead of becoming bitter, you became better. Instead of hardening, you somehow grew more tender. Instead of closing your heart, you found ways to love deeper, wiser, more strategically. You took every ounce of poison they poured into your life and alchemized it into something that makes the angels weep with admiration. That's not human strength, beloved. That's divine alchemy. And it scared them more than any retaliation ever could. Because if you, with everything they put you through, could still choose light, what did that say about their excuses? If you could forgive after what they did, what did that reveal about their bitterness? If you could rise after they buried you, what did that expose about their own choice to stay down? You became living proof that darkness is always a choice, and they couldn't handle that truth. Your comeback isn't a comeback, it's an unveiling. They're calling it a comeback because they don't have language for what's actually happening. Comebacks suggest you went somewhere, that you fell behind, that you're trying to regain what you once had. But that's not your story, is it? You never left. You were just hidden. like a weapon being forged in secret, like a masterpiece being created behind closed doors, like a storm gathering strength in silence before it reshapes the landscape forever. What they're witnessing now isn't you returning to who you were. It's you finally revealing who you've always been underneath the rubble they tried to bury you under. The quiet power they mocked. The unshakable faith they attacked. The love that survived every attempt at assassination. This isn't resurrection, you never died. This is revelation. The universe pulling back the curtain on a secret it's been keeping for 70 years. The big reveal in a cosmic story where you were never the victim. You were always the plot twist. And now, as everything you've endured finally makes sense, as every piece of the puzzle clicks into place, as the full picture of your purpose becomes clear, they're realizing something that makes their knees weak with terror. They didn't just fail to destroy you, they accidentally created exactly what the world needed most. A soul so refined by fire, so purified by pain, so anchored in truth, that nothing, and I mean nothing, can move you from your purpose now. You didn't just survive their attacks, beloved. You transformed them into your credentials, and that was always the plan. The darkness thought it was writing your obituary. Turns out, it was actually writing your resume. And heaven just called you in for the interview of a lifetime. You walked into rooms and watched people shift. You spoke truth and felt the temperature drop. You offered love and saw walls go up faster than you could blink. And for the longest time, you wondered what was wrong with you. But tonight, beloved, we're going to uncover something the enemy never wanted you to know. Something so powerful, so earth-shattering, that once you understand it, you'll never question your worth again. You are not the problem. You are the mirror. Every time someone called you too intense, too deep, too much, they were telling you exactly who you are. A force they couldn't contain. A light they couldn't dim. A truth they couldn't handle. You see, chosen ones don't come in bite-sized portions. You don't come with volume controls or dimmer switches. You arrive full strength, undiluted, unfiltered. And that terrifies people who have spent their entire lives living at half capacity. They weren't rejecting you. They were rejecting what your presence revealed in them. Your authenticity exposed their masks. Your depth revealed their shallowness. Your courage highlighted their fear. And instead of using that mirror to grow, they chose to attack the reflection. But here's what they never understood. You didn't come to make them comfortable. You came to wake them up. When they came at you with gossip, you responded with silence. When they attacked with lies, you stood in truth. When they tried to drag you into the mud, you refused to leave your throne. This wasn't weakness. This was warfare at the highest level. You understood something they never could. Real power doesn't fight in the gutter. Real power operates from a place so high, so untouchable, that earthly weapons can't reach it. They were fighting a battle in the flesh while you were moving in the spirit. They were throwing stones while you were walking on water. They brought their anger, their bitterness, their small-minded schemes, and you brought the presence of the Almighty. You didn't destroy them, you simply refused to pretend with them. And that refusal, that unwillingness to play their games, speak their language, or lower yourself to their level, it broke something in them they didn't even know existed. Every conversation with you became a courtroom, not because you were judging them, but because your very presence summoned truth into the room. Your peace exposed their chaos. Your joy revealed their emptiness. Your hope highlighted their despair. You became a living, breathing mirror. And mirrors don't lie. When someone who's been lying to themselves for decades suddenly stands before unshakable truth, they have two choices: repent or attack. Most chose to attack. They weren't rejecting you. They were rejecting what your presence revealed in them. That bitterness they accused you of, it was theirs, reflected back. That judgment they said you carried, it was their own self-condemnation, exposed. That darkness they claimed to see in you, it was their shadow, finally visible in your light. You didn't make them see their flaws. You made them impossible to ignore. When they expected you to defend yourself, you said nothing. When they waited for you to break down, you stood firm. When they anticipated your reaction, You gave them something they never saw coming. Your peace. Your silence wasn't surrender. It was sovereignty. Every word they didn't get from you became a stone in their shoe. Every reaction they couldn't provoke became a weight on their conscience. Every defense you refused to offer became proof of your strength. They came expecting a fight and found a mountain, immovable, unshakable, untouchable. And in that silence, something profound happened. The very thing they thought would break you became the thing that broke them. Your refusal to engage at their level forced them to confront themselves at yours. They weren't rejecting you. They were rejecting what your presence revealed in them. Your very existence became a prophecy of possibility. Every room you entered whispered the same message. This is what happens when someone chooses truth over comfort. This is what happens when someone chooses growth over safety. This is what happens when someone chooses God over the crowd. You weren't trying to make them feel small, but your largeness of spirit, your depth of character, your refusal to settle, it cast a shadow over their chosen limitations. You were the road not taken, walking among those who took the easy path. You were the voice that said yes to God's calling, moving among those who said maybe later. You were the one who paid the price for transformation, living among those who preferred their familiar prisons. They looked at you and saw not who you were, but who they could have been, and that vision haunted them. What you brought to their lives wasn't supposed to feel good. It was supposed to feel true. And truth, beloved, truth has a way of disturbing the comfortable and comforting the disturbed. Your presence in their lives was an invitation to grow, to change, to become more than they had settled for. Some accepted that invitation, most rejected it. But none could ignore it. They weren't rejecting you. They were rejecting what your presence revealed in them. The mirror you held up showed them their compromises, their excuses, their small dreams and smaller faith. It showed them the person they could be if they just had the courage to pay the price you paid. But courage was the one thing they lacked. So instead of thanking you for the gift of awakening, they blamed you for the discomfort of truth. And that's why they can't forget you. That's why your name still comes up in their conversations. That's why they watch your life from a distance, studying your moves, analyzing your choices. You are living proof that the impossible is possible, that people can change, that God still moves, that mountains can be moved, giants can be slayed, and ordinary people can become extraordinary when they align with heaven's agenda. You didn't destroy them, you simply refused to pretend with them. And in your refusal to fake it, you gave them something they had never seen before, a glimpse of what real looks like, of what authentic costs, of what genuine faith produces. They weren't rejecting you. They were rejecting what your presence revealed in them. But here's the beautiful truth. Chosen one. Their rejection was not your rejection. Their discomfort was not your problem. Their inability to handle your light was not a reason for you to dim it. You are the mirror. And mirrors. Mirrors don't apologize for showing the truth. The question isn't why they were uncomfortable with you. The question is why you've been apologizing for making them uncomfortable. Stop shrinking. Stop explaining. Stop defending who God made you to be. You are the awakening they needed, wrapped in the package they weren't expecting, and whether they receive it or reject it, that's on them, not you. You are the mirror, and the mirror never lies. You are living proof that the impossible is possible, that people can change, that God still moves, that mountains can be moved, giants can be slayed, and ordinary people can become extraordinary when they align with heaven's agenda. You didn't destroy them, you simply refused to pretend with them. And in your refusal to fake it, you gave them something they had never seen before. A glimpse of what real looks like, of what authentic costs, of what genuine faith produces. They weren't rejecting you. They were rejecting what your presence revealed in them. But here's the beautiful truth, chosen one. Their rejection was not your rejection. Their discomfort was not your problem. Their inability to handle your light was not a reason for you to dim it. You are the mirror, and mirrors don't apologize for showing the truth. The question isn't why they were uncomfortable with you. The question is why you've been apologizing for making them uncomfortable. Stop shrinking, stop explaining, Stop defending who God made you to be. You are the awakening they needed, wrapped in the package they weren't expecting, and whether they receive it or reject it, that's on them, not you. You are the mirror, and the mirror never lies. Conclusion: you are the mirror, and the mirror never lies. Listen to me, beloved. As we come to the close of this divine encounter, I need you to carry these truths with you, like precious stones in your heart. You are not too much. You have never been too much. You are exactly the right amount of light for a world drowning in darkness. When people recoil from your presence, when they call you intense or difficult, when they make you feel like you need to apologize for who God made you to be, remember this: they weren't rejecting you, they were rejecting what your presence revealed in them. You are the mirror. And mirrors don't lie. They reflect truth. Even when truth is uncomfortable. Even when truth disrupts. Even when truth demands change that people aren't ready to make. Stop shrinking to make others comfortable. Stop dimming your light to accommodate their darkness. Stop apologizing for the awakening you bring into every room you enter. But hear me clearly. You are not walking this journey alone. The God who formed you in your mother's womb, who numbered every hair on your head, who knows your tears before they fall, He has been orchestrating every moment of your life, even the painful ones, even the lonely ones, even the ones that made you question if you were on the right path. He is still working, still moving, still fighting battles on your behalf that you can't even see. And there is a community of believers, your spiritual family, ready to stand with you, pray with you, and remind you of who you are when the world tries to make you forget. Right here, in this sacred space we've created together, you have brothers and sisters who understand your journey, who have walked through their own valleys of rejection and emerged with the same divine fire burning in their souls. So let me ask you this. Now that you know you are the mirror, now that you understand your presence is an invitation for others to awaken, what will you do with this revelation? Will you continue to hide your light under a bushel, or will you let it shine with the full confidence of knowing you are exactly who God called you to be? Before you leave this place, before you step back into a world that may not understand you, let me pray over you. Let me speak words of blessing and power over your life. If you're able, place your hand on your heart. Feel it, beating. That's the rhythm of a warrior. That's the heartbeat of someone chosen for such a time as this. A prayer of blessing and breakthrough. Father God, I come to you now on behalf of every precious soul watching this message. Lord, you see them. You know their names. You know their struggles. You know how many nights they've laid awake wondering if they matter, if they're making a difference, if their pain has purpose. God, I pray that your Spirit would rest upon them right now, like a warm blanket of confirmation. Let them feel your presence in this very moment. Breathe life into their weary spirits. Speak tenderness over their wounded hearts. Lord, they have been mirrors in a world that doesn't want to see its reflection. They have carried truth when lies were more popular. They have stood for righteousness when compromise would have been easier. Bless them for their faithfulness. Reward them for their courage. Father, open doors that no man can shut. Make straight their paths. Let favor surround them like a shield. Give them divine connections, supernatural opportunities, and relationships that celebrate who they are instead of trying to change them. Heal their hearts from every rejection. Restore what was stolen through betrayal. Give them beauty for ashes, joy for mourning, and a garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. Most of all, Lord, let them know, let them feel that they are not alone. Surround them with people who see their light and aren't threatened by it. People who appreciate their depth instead of asking them to be shallow. People who thank God for their authenticity instead of asking them to pretend. Use them mightily, Father. Let their lives be a testimony of your goodness. Let their stories encourage others who feel like they don't fit. Let their victory become someone else's hope. We declare that their wilderness season is ending, and their promised land season is beginning. We decree that what the enemy meant for evil, you are turning for good. We proclaim that their latter days will be greater than their former days. In the mighty name of Jesus, who was rejected so that we could be accepted, who was wounded so that we could be healed, who died so that we could live. Amen and amen. If this message has touched your heart, if you felt the Holy Spirit moving through these words, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and let this community know how God is speaking to you. Share what revelation hit your spirit. Tell us how you're going to walk differently now that you know you are the mirror. Don't keep this message to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to know they're not alone. Someone who's been feeling like they're too much for this world. Someone who needs to understand that their presence is a gift, not a burden. Your story matters. Your testimony has power. And there are people in your life who need to hear what God has done through your journey as His mirror. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for spending this time with me, for opening your spirit to receive what heaven wanted to pour out tonight. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel and turn on those notifications. This community is growing into something powerful, a family of awakened souls who understand what it means to be chosen for such a time as this. Remember, beloved, you are seen, you are valued, you are not alone, and your reflection of His truth is changing the world, one awakening at a time. Until we meet again in this sacred space, keep shining, keep reflecting, keep being exactly who God created you to be. The mirror never lies, and neither do you. Be blessed.